And thank you for joining us here at the First Alert Desk. I'm Maria Moreau. Today we are joined with Ray Martinez. He's the co-founder and president of EVERFI, which works with schools and teachers, educators to help with college preparedness, to help with student learning. And we're gonna get into a lot of what EVERFI does. It's a great resource. But Ray, I wanted to bring you on here to talk about the recent news from the Biden-Harris administration about partial student debt relief, and to kind of get into that. So for those that don't know or haven't caught up, President Biden yesterday actually announced that he would be issuing a sort of debt relief plan of sorts. And for those that had Pell Grants in college, that types of debt looks like up to $20,000 in student loan debt relief. For those without Pell Grants, that's up to $10,000 in student debt relief. There's a lot more parts to this plan that I want to get into, but we'll start with that, essentially that part one. So can you talk a little bit about, the types of pricing that we're seeing with college? Prices are skyrocketing. They're the highest that we've ever seen historically. And what this type of plan, this $20,000 and $10,000 relief could mean for students.
Yeah, Maria, I mean, it was a really historic announcement yesterday by the Biden administration. I think what this will allow for is short-term relief, one-time relief for students that are making less than $125,000 a year. Qualify for the $10,000 and the $20,000 if you're a Pell Grant recipient. I think what we're seeing, though, as you look at the media, is that this has quickly turned into a political issue. And you are right. We're not addressing some of the root causes that are putting a ton of pressure on a young generation that's carrying $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. And that's the rising cost of college affordability. Right now, the American dream of going to college is becoming really unaffordable for low to moderate income families and middle class families in this country. Number two, what this bill does not address are student outcomes. How are we preparing students not only to get into college, but to graduate on time and to get a good job so they can live the American dream and be great citizens in this country? And then finally, I think the third thing is individual and family preparedness around this decision. I mean, we're expecting teenagers that are 17 or 18 years old with their families to one of the largest financial commitments in their life, one of the largest investments in yourself. And I think one of the things that we need to do as a country is better prepare our public schools, better prepare our students and teachers to really navigate this decision, understanding how federal student loans work, understanding how private students loan work, but also calculating for yourself, what is the return on investment by going to college and what are my options? I think today students have so many amazing options that are out there. And what gives me a lot of encouragement is that we work with 30,000 public schools across the country. And you're starting to see school districts and curriculum directors and superintendents really take this issue seriously. Right here in Georgia, Governor Kemp signed Senate Bill 220. Which requires juniors and seniors by the 2024-2025 academic year to take a half semester course in financial literacy, which will include education on student loans. So I do think that this is a very nuanced conversation. I think this is a step in the right direction, but we need to address those three other issues for young adults and families in the United States, particularly students of color, particularly middle class and lower income families in the United States.
And I was hoping you could provide some of that insight, delving into what you just said about providing that support for middle to low income families. That was a big part of what President Biden said. He said he wanted to help them, and he was not apologetic about offering that type of help. But on the other side of that, there is an ongoing argument where this could be acting as essentially a bailout for colleges to continue to price hike every 9 years and continue to inflate the prices of admission to the point where the college degree, which once promised, financial stability, is now putting young people in a lot of debt that would keep them from attaining that. What can you talk about as far as weighing, the pros of this short-term help to the long-term problem that is high costs of college?
Yeah, I'm not an economist, so I'm going to let the economists, weigh in on inflation and how it might impact the long-term economy. But if you actually listen to students and a lot of the student interviews post-announcement, what you see and what a lot of people will tell you is that this short-term relief can help students that are in financial hardships, that are low to moderate income, save a little more, pay down credit card debt, buy their first home, buy a car that they need to get to and from their job. But I just want to go back to preparedness for young adults. In the United States today, there's what's called work-based learning hours in our public school system. It's a requirement in many states across the country. You see it in the state of Georgia. And I think one of the things that we need to be able to do is provide students as early as middle school, going into high school, more exposure to careers, and in giving students graduation requirements, graduation credits for doing that. I think requiring very early on in your life exposure to the concept of savings and budgeting and protecting your identity online, how student loan works. I mean, we need to create a financial ecosystem underneath our students so they make better decisions. I mean, 2 years from now, a year from now, students and families are still going to be applying for student loans. The cost of college is going up, is not going down. And I think this is a shared responsibility between the public sector, government, our universities, and our public school system if we truly want to solve this. I think I'm a little frustrated that it is turning into a political issue because I think the spirit behind it is right.
And as we're talking about preparedness, focusing a little on the students that are currently in college, there was another extension, a pandemic era extension on the repayment freeze. So students do not necessarily have to pay back those loans until December 31st. Now it was August 31st, so moved a little towards the end of the year. But that is the final, as President Biden said, the final freeze that his administration would be offering. So when we talk about preparedness, what do those extra months give students, and how should they be utilizing that time to get ready to start paying back their loans?
Well, I think for students right now, it really should be about employment. And, a lot of these students went to college and universities to study a certain topic. And I think really giving them more time to find a good paying job that will allow them to pay back this debt. I mean, at the end of the day, it is your responsibility as an individual, if you take out a loan, to repay that loan. And so with this extension, hopefully it will give students enough time to be prepared and to understand, when this ends, what will my monthly obligations be to pay back these student loans? And how do I factor in where I live, my rent, my car payment, my cell phone bill? All of those things need to be factored in as you're budgeting your life. I had student loans. I went to a private school up in Maine many years ago. And, I had $35,000 in student loans, but, I had an incredibly supportive mom and dad. They took out loans as well. But I knew when I left college, I knew what my monthly payment was going to be. And I knew that was an obligation. And I've been in education my whole life, did not make a lot of money coming right out of college. But you have to factor all that in. I do think we're living through an unprecedented time with COVID and what that has done to the economy. So I do think it's positive that we are supporting young people in this country. And that is an obligation, I think, that we all have. And to be saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, can really be overwhelming and can create a lot of challenges as you are thinking about starting a family, buying your first home, wealth creation in this country. But I do think it's a more nuanced conversation. I hope this is the start of a really great dialogue in this country.
And I want to talk a little to the students that are maybe entering college or in their final years of high school that aren't necessarily going to get this aid because either they missed the deadline or they're not in a position where they have loans at the moment. Talking about that preparedness for them. They might feel like this type of help isn't going to come for them in a long while because it just now is made available, and this comes so rare and few times in between. So what can they do right now to set up their loan plan to get a head start on that future where they are going to start repaying their loans?
Yeah, I would say there are a few things that students can do today. I think number one, really think about the path that you want to take as an individual. What is important to you as you think of the next phase in your journey, going from high school to the real world? And there's so many, opportunities for young people. And as I talk to students that are juniors and seniors in high school, these students are incredible. I mean, we should be really proud of how resilient our young people are in the United States. But college, a four-year university, might not be for everyone right out of school. You might want to start your own business, be exposed to entrepreneurship, go right into the workforce, maybe start in the trade or go into the armed services. I just think that there are lots of different paths available for young people. And I think before you commit to hundreds of thousands of dollars or $50,000 or $20,000 in student loans, you just need to think that through. It's a really important decision, and it's an investment in yourself. What gives me a lot of encouragement is that you're starting to see school districts start this conversation earlier. And I think it would be wonderful for 9th and 10th and 11th graders to get internships at a digital media company, at a museum, at a hospital, at a financial services firm, to really understand what it's like to work and to have a job, and to really understand the things that you love to do, your strengths and your weaknesses. But the decision around college can be very emotional and can be very overwhelming. And so I think taking your time, finding the resources available, talking to your guidance counselor, going to everfi.com and looking at the resources that are available for you and your family. So that would be some of the advice, and have fun with it as well.
And I know EVERFI actually partners up with educators in different schools, one being APS here in Atlanta, in the metro Atlanta area. I want to kind of focus the conversation on what can educators do for their students right now to both encourage their students to continue pursuing college, even though, it might seem like it's too much debt to walk into and might seem off-putting for that reason. How can educators, how can schools support their students through both the process of entering college and taking on those loans, and also encouraging them to continue towards that path if that's something that's suitable for their future?
Yeah, we work with about 80,000 students in APS and hundreds of schools across Georgia. I think for teachers and educators, I think putting resources in front of students that are relevant, that are timely, that work for all different types of learners. There are lots of different topics and modules available that we provide to schools all across the country. We have a core financial literacy course for high school students that go over savings and budgeting, how to calculate your credit score, how to protect your identity online. We have a curriculum for middle school students that is free called Future Smart. That's provided by Mass Mutual and the Mass Mutual Foundation. That curriculum has reached over 2 million students across the country. And there's also been an independent academic research study looking at the efficacy of providing a digital online experience to a young adult. And it's very encouraging that the software is effective for students regardless of race, age, gender, parent education level, and socioeconomic background. And we're really moving the needle on knowledge and understanding, needs versus wants. Who do you go to for advice? How do you create a blueprint for your future at a young age? We also have a very specific curriculum called Pathways that allow students and families to go in and to understand specifically how federal student loans work, how grants and scholarships work, how private student loans work, how you calculate the ROI of your investment. So there are a lot of great resources that are available, that are free, that can just better prepare students and also measure some of these outcomes as students are being exposed to this type of learning. And what's great is that you are, I was lucky, as I talked about my experience with student loans, and I remember filling out the FAFSA form with my mom and dad at the dinner table. But for many families or for many students that might not have that support at home, we need to democratize this information. Information and knowledge is power. And I think it's really critical that we make this a requirement in this country. We should really certify every student in the United States before they sign up for a loan that they have had some type of financial education, financial literacy. It doesn't have to be from EVERFI. I don't care who it's from, before they sign up for that loan. I think that's something that we could do. We require driver's ed before you get your license, but we don't require anything for a student to take out $100,000 in debt at the age of 17 or 18. So we can do better for our students, and we can do better for our teachers. Our teachers deserve the best tools, the best resources in an environment that's really challenging to teach in. And if you look at the statistics around teachers, we're losing hundreds of thousands of teachers in the public school system today. I think the pressures and the requirements are really hard on teachers. Teachers are amazing. We've all been influenced by teachers. So let's provide them the right resources, the necessary tools to better prepare young adults. And when you talk to teachers, when their kids leave high school, they want them to be good kids. They want them to be prepared for life. And this is a really critical life decision that we're talking about.
Ray, thank you so much for your time. And of course, we're going to have this full interview as well as a link to EVERFI on our website, cbs46.com.